The beauty of science is what it does for us. The arrogance of that scientific method is that it thinks it's the only source of truth. And I came to perceive and without signing a contract, just seemed to be devoted to pursuing knowledge from the opposite direction of an intimacy, of a movement of subject and object towards each other, not away from each other, as an entirely other basis for seeking truth, for finding out, for understanding, for developing knowledge.
I'm Michael Max, and this is Geological, the podcast that curates East Asian medicine and methods through the power of conversation. Of all the unhelpful mental habits I have, cynicism is probably the worst. It reliably has me feeling superior at the expense of others. It gives me a pass on trying to understand someone else and instead take the shortcut of dismissive rejection in a way that adds glow to the imaging of myself to be more intelligent because I've curated the correct beliefs. Cynicism reliably feels good, which is why it's the stock and trade of most late-night talk shows. Cynicism reliably reinforces the boundaries of us and them. It gives me a pass on being mean-spirited and hateful, allows me a fleeting sense of satisfaction in putting myself one up and turning a blind eye to the suffering of others. And it gives me some distance from my own confusion on relationships and going-ons in the world that I don't well understand. It's a kind of mental and emotional laziness on my part that, unfortunately, leaves me feeling smart where I would be better served being humble or curious. Cynicism often comes along with its partner, complaint. If there are 4 horsemen of a personal apocalypse, these would surely be 2 of mine. Together, they provide instant absolution, no confession, introspection, or repentance required. Working with patients in clinic, I have to keep a rein on my cynicism. It's actually a good place to watch this pernicious mental habit attempt to express itself. Because in clinic, my job is not to judge, but instead seek to understand. It's taken a long unfolding of years to get a handle on this. I used to attempt to educate my patients into a so-called more healthy way of living. I thought I was being helpful by pointing out and giving advice on lifestyle habits. I wasted a lot of breath on telling people things they did not ask to hear. And in retrospect, it was cynicism in the service of healing that I think was behind it. Instead of trying to understand them, I smartly deduced through my brilliant array of Chinese medicine gems something that would change their life if only they would play along. Mostly, I think that patients ignored me, humored me with my Oriental esoteric blah, blah, blah. I suspect others maybe tried and failed to comply with my suggestions and probably felt a bit less well off for yet another failure that they could add to their list of burdensome problems. I've retired my desire to proselytize East Asian medicine or to talk anyone into my point of view. I suspect because over the years, I've had a terrible track record of getting people to change because I thought it was a good idea. It's not that I don't think East Asian medicine has good ideas. It does. Just that setting a place at the table for someone who's not hungry, it's a waste of time and resources. I'm not saying this as a complaint, nor am I being cynical. More that I have come to recognize that there's a ripeness required for anyone to be open to change. Of course, we live in a world of unceasing change. I mean, good luck with stopping the ongoing tides and transformation of life. I understand why any sane person would want to shore up what they have against the solvent of time. I've not been able to exercise my cynicism from my mental dialogue, but I have learned to catch it a little earlier and keep it on a shorter leash instead of indulge in its oh-so-inviting flights of fancy. Increasingly, I'm tender with the changes and travails my patients bring into the treatment room. Somehow, I think that making friends with the trouble might be a better first step in helping them along with the path of change. Sometimes I think of the clinic space as a kind of crucible. It's a container capable of holding the heat and pressure of transformation. There's a kind of intimacy that arises when sharing aspects of life that are usually reserved for our closest of relationships. Daniel Schulman returns to the podcast for a conversation on clinical intimacy. In this conversation, we explore how our work includes the personal cultivation of being able to hold a space that our patients can feel enough comfort and safety to allow themselves to be seen, which is not so easy because as practitioners, we also have our own flammable beliefs, values, and struggles, which can be lit up by the very people that we're trying to help. It takes some time, plenty of attention, and a kind of seasoning that only experience uncomfortably gained can bring to us. It's not easy, and it's not supposed to be, but it is a part of the job. And in that moment of seeing our patients, maybe we are allowing them to see something of themselves in another way. We're about to get into a whole bunch of stuff that isn't really teachable in school. We'll be right back after a few words from the folks who make it possible for you to enjoy Qiological. Qiological Conversations come to you through the generous support of our sponsors and members. You have clinic challenges? Our sponsors have solutions. Are you licensed in California and want to get the best insurance reimbursements? AcuCare can help. Blue Poppy has a special on their Great Nature Classics line this month. Mayway focuses this month on stress, anxiety, and sleep issues. Later in the show, you'll hear about how Jane's suite of clinic management tools makes office work a breeze, and a heartfelt holiday message from everybody at Golden Flower Chinese Herbs. Be sure to visit the sponsors page on the Qiological website to take advantage of all the special offers our terrific sponsors have for listeners of the podcast. Are you a California licensed acupuncturist who accepts insurance or wants to? Are you satisfied with your current reimbursements? You could be earning more. With the right support, joining top insurance networks such as Cigna is simple. AcuCare was started 30 years ago by acupuncturists for acupuncturists. AcuCare has already negotiated top reimbursement rates for acupuncturists. With AcuCare, you'll spend more time with patients and less time battling insurance paperwork. Email acucare@acucare.com and let them help you get in-network with Cigna and other well-paying companies. Get paid what you deserve. Email acucare@acucare.com and save $100 on your credentialing application fee. Use the code PROSPER. That discount code again, PROSPER. Contact acucare@acucare.com to get higher reimbursement rates and a credentialing company you can trust. Running a clinic means always having the formulas that you rely on. And this season, Blue Poppy is making it easier than ever to stay stocked. From now through the end of the year, enjoy 15% off the entire Great Nature Classics line. These trusted, time-honored herbal formulas are practitioner essentials, and now's the perfect moment to replenish your shelves before the New Year rush begins. Whether you're refreshing your dispensary or simply planning ahead, this limited-time savings makes it easy to stock up with confidence. And for patients traveling this holiday season, Blue Poppy's free-to-use dropship service makes it simple to get them the formulas that they need right to their door. And just like your clinic orders, dropship orders over $50 also qualify for free shipping under their standard shipping policy. Start the new year prepared. Save 15% on Great Nature Classics at bluepoppy.com.
Hi folks, I'm Yvonne Lau, president of Mayway Herbs. December is often a stressful month, so we're focusing on anxiety, sleep issues, and cognitive decline, areas where Chinese medicine can offer powerful but gentle solutions. In our newsletter and on our Chinese Medicine Matters podcast, we'll explore classical formulas and time-tested, clinically useful approaches for calming the spirit, supporting restful sleep, and nourishing mental clarity. Since 1969, Mayway Herbs has been a trusted source for high-quality herbal products. Our Plumflower brand line includes pills, tablets, extract granules, and organic herbs. And with educational resources, articles, and videos, we're here to help you provide the very best patient care. Visit us at mayway.com to learn more. We wish you a peaceful holiday season, and on behalf of everyone here at our family business, I'd like to offer our deep thanks, as always, for your support. Here's to balance, clarity, and well-being with the wisdom of real Chinese medicine.
Daniel Schulman, welcome back to Triological.
Michael Max, it's been a while.
It's been a minute.
I think we did this about 5 years ago last time, or maybe 3, I don't know.
Oh my God. You know what? Again, and I really need to stop saying this. I should probably do better research on my own damn podcast. I should know which episodes you were on, but, I figure there's a search feature. People just go hit the search feature.
I mean, your archives must be huge by now.
This is going to be like 440 something by the time it publishes.
Soon you'll have to onboard a professional archivist.
We did onboard a professional archivist. I did it over the summer. I actually hired a librarian.
There you go.
And she created a taxonomy.
Whoa.
It's like the geological decimal system. She created a taxonomy of topics that we used when we redid the website so that everything's sort of categorized and
right.
And it's easy to find things now. It's
searchable.
It's actually a library. It's a searchable archive now.
Incredible. That's how long you've been around.
Long enough to have an archive, yeah. Yeah, I've left a trail of destruction in my wake.
Incredible. It's going to be a big mausoleum they're going to have to erect when you leave this world.
Nah, why?
Just to house your archive.
No, I just disappear. Poof. Poof. Right. We'll leave what's been created to the created, and then let the non-created, have its way with you when you're gone.
Right. The creator.
Yeah. Whatever that is. But that's not why we're here today. Or maybe it is why we're here today.
Well, actually it is, but we'll get into that.
We've been riffing. It's so much fun because we do talk from time to time. And so often when we're having a conversation, I'm thinking, man, where's the damn record button? We should have this
I know.
On tape. It's just because it's fun talking about medicine, and not just like how you do it and the clinical techniques, although that's all fun and it's wonderful, but there's so many phenomenal aspects to practice that they kind of touch your soul.
I'm there every day now. It's so beautiful.
It is beautiful. And we were talking about how there's a kind of an intimacy in clinic.
Absolutely.
And I thought that would be a great topic as a jumping off point.
It's a fantastic topic.
What makes it so fantastic for you?
Ooh, good opening question. Well, interestingly, I come from a line of world-class scientists. My father and my uncle, they were at the top of their game, widely published. They're both passed away now, but their work is still out there as quite legendary in the world of science.
What were they doing?
I have 2 science degrees myself. So I come from, both very interesting men of science from a different era. Science isn't what it was. Back then, science was a really creative, pure endeavor. It wasn't about appropriation of intellectual property and all this kind of stuff. So my dad was he was in the first generation of genetics researchers right after Crick and Watson discovered DNA.
Mm.
So we're talking major scientific history pivot point. I mean, he was doing work that was the laboratory equivalent of landing on the moon for the first time. And my uncle was one of the first people to apply computer modeling to chemical understanding. Like now it's routine, but back then he was like one of the first in the world to develop computer models for modeling chemical reactions, which also became really well known around the world. So anyway, let's get back.
You grew up in an exploratory environment.
We got to get back on track here. Yeah, but the thing is, I came for a whole bunch of reasons that are a lot to go into. I got I became very intimately aware of the non-intimacy of the science, that the goal of science was to separate, in the pursuit of objectivity, was to separate the subject and the object completely.
Yeah.
That's the ideal, to for the observer and the observed to be as separate from each other as absolutely possible in the pursuit of so-called objectivity. And as we all know, in Chinese philosophy, anything taken too far becomes its opposite, or just kind of breaks down.
Yes, it does become its opposite. It actually does. This is one of the great mysteries. This drove me crazy when I was first in acupuncture school. Like, something turns into its opposite. How does that happen? I couldn't take my linear mind and wrap it around that.
Right. So the opposite that it turned into was me. I came to, as a compensation of what I was observing, and I loved my dad and my uncle and what they were up to, but I came to reject, or my soul was driven to head in the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm. You wanted to connect, not hold separate.
Well, I could see the power in the objective separation of subject and object, and it's powerful. I mean, so much of what we have around us that makes our lives better is a result of that approach to truth seeking.
Yes, like the technology we're using right now to make this podcast.
It wouldn't exist if that truth seeking approach wasn't allowed to thrive. But the mistake we always make these kind of mistakes in our arrogance and our hubris, is that we think that's everything. That reveals all truth. And I came to understand that no, it leaves the arrogance of science. The beauty of science is what it does for us. The arrogance of that scientific method is that it thinks it's the only source of truth. And I came to perceive, and without signing a contract, just seemed to be devoted to pursuing knowledge from the opposite direction of an intimacy, of a movement of subject and object towards each other, not away from each other, as an entirely other basis for seeking truth, for finding out, for understanding, for developing knowledge, which would be abhorrent to the modern scientist, because that's like completely subjective, right? It's based on experience. I'm not removing my experience with my subject. My journey has been to grow intimate in my experience with my subject, which is the opposite, right, of modern science. And thankfully, Chinese medicine and acupuncture and the clinic has given me a beautiful means for that walking that journey in my own life. And I'm still walking it. It's quite a remarkable journey. I mean, just to step back, of course, this is not my idea. I mean, the real granddaddy or grandparent of this idea would be probably understood in modern times as, I don't even know how to pronounce his name. He was German, Goethe, Goethe. He developed a whole approach to science. There's books about him. It's amazing stuff that is based on the proximity, moving toward the subject and object, moving towards each other, and knowledge being developed out of the experience of the observer, as opposed to removing the experience of the observer. So he was the badass guy that was, trying to counter the Descartesian Newtonian revolution of science. But just to give, if people are interested, those would be the basics of what I'm speaking about, would be found in Goethean science. So I think, what was it? That was your question, right? How did I wind up here? Or what was your question? Anyway, that's my answer.
Yes. It's always the question, isn't it? How did we wind up here?
So I was basically being that teenager with my uncle and my dad. I was saying, okay, I love what you're doing, but
But not for me. Not for me, man.
I'm gonna rebel.
Yes. I get it.
And my dad and I used to have arguments. I mean, in midlife, I went to acupuncture school, and all he could talk to me about was the placebo effect. He couldn't get himself out of his own way to allow us to have a conversation about acupuncture beyond his framing of it. And he was just convinced everything I was doing was placebo effect. And I eventually gave up. We couldn't have a discussion about acupuncture because he was just
not open,
too invested in his whole framing of reality.
Well, that's an interesting phrase there, framing of reality, because I feel like, at least in my clinical work, framing is really a central feature of what my practice is, because people come in and they've got one idea about what's going on with them. In fact, one of my teachers used to say this. I haven't thought about this in decades. Wow, that's crazy. But one of my teachers used to say, there's what the patient thinks is wrong, there's what you think is wrong, and then there's what's actually wrong.
Right.
Right?
Right. And that's beautiful, because that's how I actually approach more and more my engagements with my patients, is that we're in a relationship. And there's what you think is...
And there are frames.
There's what you think is wrong and what I think is wrong. And we're going to work together to dance that dance and find out get as close as we can to what's actually wrong. Or what needs attention. I don't know about the word wrong.
I know. The word wrong is, there's already a value judgment there.
Right. That's a framing in itself. Yeah.
It's hard to get away from it. It's hard to get away, right? I recognize it's there. I try with my language to not use wrong, good, or bad, or those kinds of things. Instead, to be more descriptive of whatever the unfolding process might be. But I want to come back to this frame thing for a second, because people come in with their own frame, their own belief system. They often come in with a diagnosis.
Yeah, yep.
Right? And so often people will inhabit that diagnosis. Like, I am my disease. I am...
Well, the big one now is inflammation. Everyone comes in and says, I have inflammation.
You want to hear a funny story?
That's the buzzword this week. In 2 years, it'll be the next thing.
You want to hear a funny story?
Yeah.
Okay. So I used to live in Taiwan, and people would come in to see the guy that I was studying with, Dr. Jiang. And often they would come in and they'd say, and he'd say, like, what's going on? And they go, oh, doctor, 今天我上火了, right? Today, I have fire rising. It's a thing that they would say. This is back in the early part of the century.
Right.
I can't believe I just said early part of the century, but I did. Anyway, they would say 上火了. And I'd be like, fire rising, you have fire rising. Like, what the hell does that actually mean? And because I'm working out my Chinese at that point still. And eventually what I found out it meant was, I'm kind of out of sorts. I'm out of sorts. I'm a little headachy. But basically I'm like, meh. Like how you doing? Meh. All right. I'm out of sorts. And so people come in today and they say inflammation. I'm like, well, that's a direct quote almost, or a direct translation of 上火. I got this fire going on.
Yeah, seriously.
Right. And what do they mean by I have inflammation?
Well, with patients everything I'm going to say in this interview is, I only say things when I feel they're appropriate. But something I often say to people is, there's no information content in that word. Like, it's like putting itis at the end of whatever. I have elbowitis, I have knee-itis, I have gastritis.
Do you say that to them? Do you say that means nothing to me?
I say, yeah, if like with the qualifier that I have to feel it's appropriate for them to hear. But I work hard quickly with someone to establish that you've just come into a different country. The language here is different, everything's different. And saying you have inflammation, there's no information there for me. There's almost not. There's a little bit. You told me something hurts, but you could have just said my knee hurts.
Maybe it hurts, but maybe it doesn't hurt. It's just they're out of sorts.
I tell them I'm looking for information content of a high quality. I want to know a lot more detail about than just have gastritis. I had someone last week came in and said I have gastritis. I said, that's just a fancy word for my tummy hurts. Like, it doesn't, there's not a lot of information there.
Yes. And so which part of your tummy hurts? The upper part or the lower part, right? They go, I got this bad stomach problem. And they point to their lower abdomen.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. But the journey into intimacy is actually getting way into that with a person. And as we know, and for me, I practice Saam acupuncture now. That for me, we all have different systems in acupuncture, but for me, that really opened the door in ways other systems I've practiced haven't. For me, that just the door and windows that open that enable me to get very close to the patient and really understand what's going on is facilitated by the Saam process.
I want to put a pin in that for a second and come back to it.
Sure. Yeah, we don't have to go there.
About this. No, I do. But before that, we're talking about intimacy. We're talking about, air quotes here, inflammation.
Right.
Right. Which is I think it is a marvelous invitation to, who are you? Because, like you said, and I love your phrasing of this, well, that's a whole lot of no information statement. It's a wonderful way to recognize, I don't know you.
Exactly.
And I don't know what's going on with you. And beyond that, they don't really know themselves and they don't know what's going on. And like that's the beginning, I think, of the therapeutic journey.
Immediately.
Is to recognize that together we don't know.
And what I find, then I'll start down, especially in the Saam context, but it would be in any Chinese medical context, the whole raft of questions. When did this start? What makes it worse? What makes it better? Do you sleep well? What are you like mentally and emotionally? Do you have anxiety? Do you have depression? La la la. What's your marriage like? Who are your friends? Do you like to be alone? Do you like to be with people? And then they're thinking, and at some point I'll say, I ask a lot of weird questions, don't I? And I'll say, you're probably wondering, what does that have to do with my back pain? And so I'll just say, in my world, it has everything to do with that. I need to get to know you as a person because 10 people could come in here with back pain and get 10 different treatments. I really need to know you. And I find most people, especially in this day and age, when we're so fragmented and broken up into bits and pieces and treated that way, most people would they love it. They welcome, wow, this person wants to know me. Like, occasionally I'll have someone who seems obviously uncomfortable with that process and is just too invested in being separated and fragmented, but they don't come back.
Yeah, I'm here for my back. Don't talk to me about my diet.
Yeah.
It's my back, doctor. Fix my back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But most people, we're so starved for that kind of engagement. Many people are, certainly my patients are, that I think they really...
Yeah, I think so.
They welcome it.
I think it's part of what people go to see an acupuncturist for. Of course, they're looking for some relief from whatever the thing is that they wrote on the top of their list of troubles. For sure, they're looking for some help with that. But I think there is also, and you said this really well, we live in such a fragmented world, to come into a place where we're invited to bring more of ourselves into it. Oh, it's kind of a balm for the soul.
It is, very much is.
And here's the other thing. I was just thinking, I think a lot of times people go to see psychotherapists for very similar reasons. But the difference between a psychotherapist and an acupuncturist, we're not looking to fix or change or take apart or somehow tinker with their psychoemotive whatever.
Well, I've actually used Saam to go, without being a psychologist, to go fairly deep into that territory.
Yes.
Not inappropriately. I say the word psychosomatic, I say that I practice somato-psychic medicine. So I just revert them.
I love that.
I invert them so that people don't get it, because psychosomatic is almost become derogatory, like you're imagining stuff.
So it is derogatory.
So I've inverted them, and I say...
I want y'all out there in listener land to hear that. We practice a somatic psycho medicine. Wow.
Somato-psychic, yeah, that's the term I came up with. Just
somatic psychic, yeah.
You have to reinvent language. Yeah, that's what culture does always. It destroys terms. Like a lot of words today don't mean anything anymore because they've been destroyed. We won't go into that one, but
where they mean the opposite.
Yeah, so you have to constantly invent new terms to keep people, to keep the whole system awake. But I'm certain, in my practice, there's no question that I'm operating at that boundary between body, heart, mind, soul, like at the somato-psychic boundary.
This episode is brought to you by Jane, a practice management software and EMR I use to keep things running smoothly behind the scenes. When I first started looking for a practice management tool, I wanted something that felt like a teammate, not just more tech to figure out. That's why I switched to Jane. One of the things I love most about Jane? Their support team. You get unlimited help from real humans, even on Saturdays, by phone, email, or chat, all at no extra cost. It's easy to learn about Jane in your own time, too. Jane's guide is packed with helpful tips and updates, and it's always growing. And maybe best of all, Jane has a wonderful community of practitioners, so even if you're running a solo practice, you don't have to feel like you're doing it alone. I appreciate how Jane's tech support responds to my email inquiries, and just the right amount of detail they provide in helping me to solve a problem. If you're curious about what Jane can do for your practice, head to jane.app/demo. And if you're ready to get started, use the code CHEOLOGICAL for a 1-month grace period on your new Jane account. I completely agree. The difference being when people go to see a psychotherapist, they expect I'm going to work with my psychoemotive material. And when they come to see us, we include it, but we're not shining a light on it necessarily. We include it, it's invited in, but it's not like the front and center piece.
Yeah, there's an interesting fine line. I'm still developing my interview techniques. I'll probably be developing them forever, but I'll pretty quickly dive into a person's psycho-emotive history. But I'll always say I'm not a psychologist, and I don't even need to know the details. But I do need to know the broad strokes of your psychological life. So it's like I'll dive in, but not get into the details. Unless I say you're welcome to tell me anything you want. There's nothing I haven't heard. I'm comfortable with anything. I'm here for you, 100%. But for example, I may ask them about their relationship and their marriage because I want to understand. For example, let's say I'm questioning about how assertive they are or how deferential they are in a marriage, because that's important in Saam. Are you assertive or are you deferential? So I might throw in examples like, from something simple like, I don't know, it's Friday night, you want pizza, he wants Chinese. Would you say, fine, we'll have Chinese? Or would you say, no, we're having pizza? Or I might go to much more serious stuff about like you're building a house but I want them to know that I don't need to know the details. I'm just trying to gauge how much you stand up for yourself or defer to the other. Because that's an energetic directionality that Saam in particular is very focused on.
Yes. So again, that kind of thing is intimate.
It gets intimate. And so, yeah, I mean, I get into some pretty detailed aspects of a person's life, their friendships, their intimate other, their parents, how they stand up for themselves at work, all those domains. And I want them to know, I have 25 years of experience. I'm 66 years old. So I think I make it very clear to them that I'm comfortable with anything they choose to tell me. I won't be uncomfortable with anything.
Okay.
And that's important.
It is important. And I want to get into this for a second because I want to be in that place as well. And like you, I've got a similar amount of experience. And so because of, you get exposed to something over and over, you get more comfortable with things generally.
Right.
So I'm reasonably comfortable with most of what people want to tell me. But sometimes something will come up and it's like, ooh, that's an edge for me.
Right.
There's an edge. It's like, okay, I'm going to be my best present self here at the moment. But I also recognize that there are moments where, okay, that brings up something in me that I need to be aware of.
Right.
And I don't want to deny it or push it away, but I need to keep it on like a short leash.
I hear you.
So what do you do with that when it comes up?
Well, I've become good at not showing if somebody shares something with me that pushes an edge that I might experience internally a little discomfort with. become good at putting on a mask so they can't see it. So I can it's like I'm juggling. I'm working on processing something myself, but they haven't experienced any. I'll give you a good example. I had someone recently, very challenging psychologically, very challenging, and she was very, I don't know what the psychological terms are, but she would get into some pretty risky behavior. And she came in at one point, had gone really hyper, and she was indulging in shoplifting and sexually very aggressive behavior, and she was sharing that with me. So that took a bit of composure to just hear her and not reveal to her any discomfort, because I needed her trust and I also wanted to help her. And I remember she came in at one point, and she and her husband were going down to Maine. I'm in Canada. They were going down to Maine, and Trump had just come in as president. And I just looked at her and I said, "You've got to promise me you will not shoplift while you're down there, because if you get caught," Trump had just come in, and like people were winding up in like prison in Guatemala, like at the drop of a hat. You're from Canada, you're in another country. It's the Trump era. If you got caught like,
behave.
I never judged her shoplifting here at home. I just took it as a behavior and let's work on this. But going to the States, I had to say, please promise me you will not shoplift, because if you get caught at this time in the early Trump phase of presidency, you could wind up in a prison in Nicaragua in no time.
Yeah. Well, Daniel, that's not judgment.
And that scared
That's not judgment.
And she thanked me. No, she thanked me. I was actually,
That's care.
She could see, wow, this guy he's not judging my shoplifting, but he's advising me on how to shoplift and when not to. So that's an example,
That's great. Yeah.
But that's an intimacy. Like, we're deep into herself, and she grew to trust me a lot because of those kinds of things. She was not easy to work with. Very challenging. Yeah.
You bring up the J word, judgment.
Yeah.
It's such a big thing, right? Like, don't judge me.
Yeah.
Like, yes, and. Like you, I don't want to be judgmental of my patients in a way that creates a space between us.
Right.
That creates distance, because then I'm not available to be as helpful as hopefully I can be. But there is a sort of clinical judgment that we have to bring.
We make them every day. This person's just deciding someone's too damp is a judgment.
Exactly. What is the difference for you between judgment and discernment?
Oh, I can tell you pretty exactly there. It's judgment if I bring my own emotional charge to the interpretation. That's just judgment. That's just a mess of my own projections and attachments, and it's what I call discernment. If I'm not bringing my emotional content to the situation at all, then I'm just my interest is their well-being, and we're making discernments. And I think that brings up a piece. I'm still unpacking this whole, I may write an article on it soon, notion of clinical intimacy, because I think it's a beautiful, beautiful piece of Chinese medicine that needs to be brought fully out into the open, because it's something we offer. But of course, our culture is so predicated on, for both legal and scientific reasons, keeping boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And intimacy and boundaries are two things at odds with each other in our scientific and legal matrix we live in.
You were bringing this up at the very beginning of the conversation.
Right. So I think the essential ingredient to clinical intimacy that's appropriate is self-cultivation. That's the challenge. And that's a difference between our medicine, at least where it comes from, and modern medicine. Modern doctors don't talk about self-cultivation. They're technicians. They learn techniques and they apply techniques. There's no self-cultivation as the front and centerpiece of modern medicine. But the medicine we practice, self-cultivation is integrally, at least where it comes from, maybe perhaps not in the way some people choose to practice it now in the West, but self-cultivation is essential. And self-cultivation is about a process of unmasking and peeling away your own dysfunctional psychological structures and so on and so forth, so that you're able to perceive the world in an intimate but objective, non-attached, non-projecting way.
Less reactive.
Yeah. So this distinction between discernment and judgment is a distinction between almost like what I would call an intimate objectivity and looking at the person with all of your own projections messed up in the process. In which case you are judging them, you're thinking, and that's of course no good for anybody, including proper medicine. And that's actually one thing I really worry about with AI is that AI, I'm not for or against AI, so to speak, but I'm worried about AI being brought into our medicine and supplanting a lot of our clinical skills, because the ongoing practice of our clinical skills is itself a developmental process. And you can't shortcut it. You need to see thousands of tongues or feel thousands of pulses or palpate thousands of abdomens, or however it is you practice. You need to do it tens of thousands of times to go through that long iterative process of making mistakes, correcting mistakes, seeing the full range of expression. And if AI comes in, as it no doubt will, and replaces some of those clinical processes, we're foregoing our own cultivation. And then we won't develop the maturity to be intimate with our patients, actually.
So we stunt our own development.
In a responsible way.
We stunt our own development.
Yeah, and I think that's a big caveat of the whole AI process as it's going to more and more creep into clinic.
Something that you didn't mention, but I think is here in the background, in addition to feeling hundreds or thousands of pulses and abdomens and looking at tongues, is all those moments that we sit with people and we go, ooh, that's uncomfortable. Oh, shit, what do I do with that? Oh, this person is irritating me. Oh, one of those, right? Whatever. There's all these moments for ourselves where we are kind of wearing away our rough edges.
Absolutely.
So that we can be more present. It's like, it's like, how can I listen to this person when they're wearing that T-shirt?
Right.
It's like, I just want them out of the goddamn room.
Right.
Oh, man, look, I'm really reactive and uncomfortable with this person. Oh, who is this? Who actually is this person? Who actually am I? In the presence of this person. These are moments, I don't know if we get to develop as practitioners without a lot of, oh man, this makes me uncomfortable.
And even going further over repeated experience into somewhere I've gone where I've learned to, and this gets even more intimate and challenging to talk about, but I've learned to love even the patient that irritates me the most. And there's no shortcut. You get there through the journey of self-reflection and self-correction and the long iterative journey that there's no shortcut. You have to go through years of that.
Love the patient. So this is, look, there was a nice Jewish boy a couple thousand years back who said something about loving your enemies.
Right. Well, hopefully they're not my enemy, but
no, but that was the phrase, wasn't it? Some kind of a psycho-spiritual cultivation that allows you to see the humanity.
Yeah, keep your enemies closer and your friends further. Keep your enemies closer. But
that's a different thing. I'm talking about that thing of loving your enemy. That instead, again, that nice Jewish carpenter guy from like a long time ago.
Well, one of the essences of Judaism is not to treat people often misinterpret it as treat your neighbor as you would treat yourself. It's actually not. It's treat the stranger as you would yourself. Stranger and a neighbor are two very different people.
Oh, tell me more.
Well, your neighbor isn't a stranger. They're your neighbor. There's some familiarity there. A stranger is someone you have there's no geographical or familial, or you have no history with them, you have no relationship with them. They may even be at odds with you. I mean, that's an essence of Judaism, is to treat the stranger as you would yourself, which is it's the ultimate other. If we had a spectrum of otherness, the stranger would be the most other.
So this golden rule that we heard about as children, treat your neighbor as yourself.
In Judaism, it's treat the stranger.
Treat the stranger.
Very different from the neighbor.
Yeah, I'm getting that.
That's the ultimate otherness.
In fact, you're rewiring something that's really old in me to even think in that way. I'd never considered it. Daniel, I never considered it that way. But in a way, people, they do come into our practice. We are strangers. And part of our work is to unstranger.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah, I had a woman in just last week. She's from Iran. She immigrated here not that long ago. I could have made all kinds of presumptions about her just based on what I know of Iran. But I needed to find out what coming from Iran and being in Canada was for her.
Mm-hmm. You know, in some ways, the people that are most different from us, in some ways, are easier to work with because...
Oh, you just brought up something very amazing.
Okay, well, let me finish it, and then we can get into it. It's easier in a way because the assumptions that I have, you know, if I think we have some things that we share in common, it's easy to make some assumptions. Oh, you're like this, you're like that. But if someone's really, really different,
right?
It's like, oh, okay, I need to be not on my best behavior, but I need to bring my discernment forward because
it's a big challenge. Someone comes from a whole different culture, different values, you know.
Exactly. But at least I know I'm on that tender ground.
Right. Yeah. The contrasts are so loud that it's obvious. Yeah.
Yeah. In some ways, it's more helpful.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah.
Anyway, I interrupted you. You were going to say something.
Oh, I don't remember.
Yeah. I made you forget. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I mean, another piece. So, I mean, ultimately, what I think to advance this whole notion of clinical intimacy, which I think is a major offering we have as Chinese medicine practitioners, and it's hard because we live in such a litigious and scientific world that I think we're in a closet about it, and I think we should come out of the closet and actually advance that clinical intimacy is one of our strengths. But it's tricky because of the litigious and scientific culture we live in. And we're going to have to figure out a way to articulate that we're not talking about breaking down important boundaries here. We're talking about a different configuration of boundaries. Getting intimate with your patient, but of course, obviously not for the wrong reasons. And self-cultivation is an essential centerpiece of that. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to handle the maturity, the clinical maturity that intimacy requires. So, but I'm also, you know, you develop these things in an incubator and then you take them out into the world. And I happen to be in a very a very fascinating incubator for developing my notions of clinical intimacy for 2 or 3 or 4 reasons. One, I practice in a small community. I'm in a city of about 40,000 people. So I'm not in a 4 million person city. So there's very little anonymity with my patients. I treat whole families. I treat brothers, sisters, parents, uncles. Someone comes in and I know that, you know, the parents died last year and the sisters and brothers are fighting over how to sell the family home. And like, I know these things intimately. I have babies named after me. I mean, I'm called to the bedside when a patient is dying because the family knows that I mean something to that person. Like, so there's an intimacy that I'm fortunate to just be. I'm developing my understanding of clinical intimacy in an incubator that really allows for that. Whereas if I was in Sao Paulo practicing with 25 million people in the city, I wouldn't have that happening. So there's
maybe
I would. I don't know. But certainly.
But you're in that smaller place. Look, I'm going to I'm in not as small of a place,
Right.
but St. Louis feels like a small
Right.
town
Right.
in many ways. And if you're here long enough,
Right.
you do treat cousins and relatives and family members. And,
Okay. Sure.
you see people at the grocery store and they go, hey, that's my acupuncturist. And,
Right. Right.
I can neither confirm nor deny that I am, but, you're allowed to say whatever you want because there's HIPAA, but there's also, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't be good HIPAA conformists because
Right.
for obvious reasons, being able to hold confidentiality is a key element of a healing relationship. Super important.
Yeah, and that gets tricky.
It does get tricky, especially when you're also a member of a community.
Yes.
And so here we are, the scientific objective, I'm standing apart, and the moving forward because subject and object are related expressions of something. And both of these things are true at the same time.
Yeah. Wow. We can unpack that for a whole other podcast. Because another piece of this is that unlike in modern medicine, where you learn techniques at school and then you go into practice and you're practicing those techniques, as I understand it, our clinical medicine is developmental. So I'm personally developing, and my patients are personally developing, and I see them over many years. And so our individual developmental paths are actually entwined. I have patients where our developmental paths are entwined.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets, talk about boundary issues. You could go crazy with the boundary issues there, but it's just the reality. I'm very entwined with some of my patients' lives.
Yes, we are. And so this gets into a very interesting thing about boundary. Is it like an iron curtain? Is it a stone wall?
Yeah.
Is it a missile defense system, or is it a kind of semi-permeable membrane?
It's permeable.
I think it's semi-permeable.
But again, if you aren't cultivating yourself, then you're going to bring too much of a mess into it of projection. Another piece I was thinking about recently in my own case, again, I'm just incubating all of this in my own way, but I happen to, in my own life, have three very deep time relationship. One, I'm Jewish, so it's the year 5786 for us. So we're an ancient people, and I know that. I know I'm standing on the shoulders of 80 generations. I feel it. It's in my marrow. So I have a very deep relationship to time on that basis, and then I have 3 geology degrees. So,
oh my goodness.
Again, we're a very deep relationship to time. You get into geology, you go on geology field trips, you're walking over rocks that are time frozen millions of years ago, and you're aware of that. And so that's a deep relationship to time. And then, of course, Chinese medicine, depending on how you argue it, 2,200 to 5,000 years old, is I know when I'm using the Korean 4-needle technique, I'm putting needles in a configuration that's written down in the Nanjing that was written 2,000 years ago. So those 3 things, I live my life in a very deep relationship to time. And so what that means is that I see my patients in that deep time. I see all of this in deep time. And that affords a certain kind of impersonal objectivity as well, because we're all just really fleeting moments in a much bigger process. And it doesn't mean I'm not compassionate or personable. I'm very much that. But at the same time, I hold everything we're doing in that deep time context, which in my incubator around clinical intimacy gives me a kind of a objectivity perspective as well. I'm not completely swallowed up in thinking that the year 2025 is the be all and end all of everything that's ever happened. And so these are just unique ingredients in my own incubation of this principle I'm coming to understand of clinical intimacy that allows the intimacy to be exercised, responsibly, ethically. And to get back to the beginning of our discussion, is very, very oppositional, contrary to the modern medical approach to working with people, which is entirely the opposite thing. It's non-intimate, it's separate, it's technical, it's removed. A person isn't a person. They're just They're just liver enzymes and blood pressure.
Unless you go to the other side of the medical model, in which case they're only a bunch of psychological processes
Right.
disembodied from a physicality.
Right. But even there, I mean, psychology has gone so far down a pathologization.
My point exactly.
And yeah, of course, somatic medicine is now on the rise, which is a good development because that's getting a little more intimate with the body-mind.
What do you mean by somatic medicine? What are you referring to?
Well, we're just hearing a lot about these days about. There's so many. I'm not a psychologist, but I'm aware in the psychology world that there's more and more every year techniques and approaches to addressing the somaticization of psychological issues. I don't even know the names of all the techniques. There's so many around these days. Rapid eye movement or eye movement techniques and, breathing techniques and movement techniques. And
there's all the tapping stuff too.
Tapping. And it's huge. It's become huge. So, those are good developments.
Well, no, not surprising. Look, you take anything and you pull it apart, there's going to be a tension to bring it back together. Likewise, if you try to squish too much stuff together, there'll be a tension to pull it apart.
Yeah, that's well put. Yeah. But so I hope to, before I'm finished this journey in acupuncture in my life, to flush out and articulate and get out there this idea of clinical intimacy, which I think we should stand up and proclaim as the centerpiece, really, of our medicine, as distinct from how other forms of medicine are practiced.
Use it as a marketing aspect or as a personal cultivation aspect? Is this for outward, here's who we are, we're special, or is this something that we take in for ourselves and keep it as like a mantra for...
I guess both.
Attending to focus.
I would see both. Why not both?
I keep coming back in my mind here to Goethe on one side and Descartes on the other.
Absolutely, yeah.
They were, look, I don't know my history that well, but they were somewhat contemporary, I think.
I believe, yeah, precisely so.
Okay. So even back then,
right,
while Descartes kind of got the spotlight,
he won the day.
You had this other side who was also speaking cogently to the subject-object relationship, the apparent subject-object relationship.
Yeah, and that knowledge is to be obtained by merging, not separating subject and object, by intimacy, by not weeding out the experience of the observer, but actually fronting that.
As the year 2025 comes to a close, Golden Flower Chinese Herbs wishes you, your family, and your patients a warm holiday season full of joy and restful recharging. They have high hopes for 2026 being better. Remember that this season calls for slowing down as our chi retreats to the interior. We will be wise to respect that natural cycle. Golden Flower is here for you in this holiday season with gratitude from everybody at Golden Flower Chinese Herbs. Well, and then you have the modern physicists. It's funny. I say modern physicists. These are guys that were doing their thing like 100 years ago, right? Quantum mechanics and all that. That was like 100 years ago.
Yeah, and culture hasn't caught up with them yet.
It has not caught up.
No.
But they're basically saying the same thing.
Absolutely.
I think it's hilarious, that whole thing about...
entanglement. The word's entanglement.
And yes.
Well, and then we can get into a very mysterious... the more I get into this, the more the mystery of serendipities and synchronicities appears. And we don't have to go too far down that. We can if you want, but just to give you an example, here's a and these things happen to me more and more and more the more I get into this. I had a guy, 70-year-old guy, he came to me, he was on target for kidney dialysis. And we had creatinine level data going back 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And we started doing acupuncture and his kidneys stabilized. And we kept him off dialysis for the rest of his life. But he came in every week. So someone comes in every week, we developed quite a relationship.
So instead of going to dialysis, he went to go see you.
Yeah, and then he could live his life in dignity the rest of the week.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a very active community member here, but we became basically philosophers. He would come in every week and say, I've got a question for you. And we would sit and talk philosophy about life. And by the end of, for over years of this, we became very, very close. And he wound up in the hospital. He had a cancer and he wound up in the hospital. And get this, it's one morning, I'm in bed. You know that liminal zone? You're just kind of waking up, you're half awake, half asleep. And I suddenly have a dream in that liminal state, and it's him. And he's come to visit me. And he's saying, you're not going to believe this. I just peered over the other side, and it's glorious. He said that in my dream. I get up, I'm having my morning coffee an hour later, and his daughter texts me. My dad's in the hospital. They're saying he's going to die by tomorrow. Would you like to come in and sit with him? And he came to me in my dream to basically tell me that.
I've peered over the other side and it's glorious.
And he wanted to tell me that what he saw on the other side was spectacular. But an hour later, I didn't know he was in the hospital dying. And an hour later, I'm invited by his daughter to go and sit with him that day. And he died the next day. But all to make the point that when you get close to people, you get into a lot more mystery about human. And I brought that up because you were talking about quantum mechanics and entanglement and non-local effects, and and that's a whole world. But yeah, modern physics is well aware of this, but culture has not caught up with it.
Mm-mm. Well, and even that very, very simple piece to observe something and thereby interact, what's being observed changes.
Well, exactly.
I mean, it's a very, very simple thing. So, okay, if that is the case...
Exactly.
Where does the subject stop and the object begin?
Yep. It's quite beautiful. We're still strange. It's bizarre because, like you say, the advanced scientific world knows all this stuff. And our mainstream culture is still avoiding it and denying it and ignoring it. And it's a very odd. There was one of my heroes is a physicist from University of Massachusetts. His name is Arthur Zions. You can Google him. You're in the States, right? Zajonc. In Canada, we say Z. And he's written a lot of books. He's actually a very close associate of the Dalai Lama. And he's really advocating, coming out of quantum physics, and he's a physics professor at UMass, of a whole new contemplative approach to science that addresses the exact topic we've been discussing for the last hour. And he has a beautiful book, and the byline of the book, I can't remember the name of the book, it's Contemplative Inquiry or something like that. The byline of the book is When Knowledge Becomes Love. And that's what I'm getting at here. I'm getting at an approach to knowledge that is not disengaged, but actually is fully engaged. And so we are practicing love in our clinic with our patients in a very intimate way, but ethically, morally, responsibly, all of that. And I think I've got a quote. Here's a quote I wrote down for this interview. It's from Goethe, and he has a beautiful quote. One comes to know nothing beyond what one loves. And the deeper and more complete the knowledge, the stronger, more powerful, and living must be one's love.
So if you really want to know something, you got to love it.
You have to love it. There's a very interesting thing I came to understand recently about the number 13. This is through my Kabbalistic journey, but it's interesting because it has a tie-in with Chinese medicine. So in the material world that is form and space, you could say there are 12 parts to something. So for example, if you think of a cube, it's got 12 edges. So you can define the cube in terms of those 12 coordinates, and you've defined the cube. But you don't know the cube. You've just defined its parameters. numbers. 13 is the number of is beyond the 12. 13 is the number that represents a whole understanding of the cube once you've assembled the 12 edges. The number, and interestingly, in the gematria of Kabbalistic term thinking, the word love in Hebrew and the word whole in Hebrew both have the gematria of 13. So to know something wholly is to love it. But it's just one number beyond knowing all of its coordinates. And it's interesting because there's 12 acupuncture channels.
Oh, wow. Yes, there are.
So there's a deep numerology to all of this. So you can have a lot of knowledge about the 12 channels in your patient, but you don't yet know them. The knowing them, the loving them, is the integration of all those 12 at a higher level, and then you're into 13.
So it's what takes the parts and transforms it into a whole.
Into one whole. But modern science can't do that because it takes it all apart.
And again, there's a value to knowing the parts. There's a value to knowing the channels. There's a value to
absolutely
understanding molecules and cells and connective tissue. And then there's this other whole that comes out of it.
I have this moment with patients where I'll do, first of all, getting all the information, asking them all the questions, getting all the data, thinking about each of the channels, what's going on here, what's going on with Wei Yin and Yang Ming and Tai Yin and all this stuff. But that's still all just the parts and the data.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll have this moment, it's almost indescribable, where at a certain point I have all this data, and then I let it all go, and I kind of step back, and in a way I can't even articulate, I'll see the picture. Okay. And it's a moment. It's a momentary perceptive whole engagement. You can't hold it. It's there for a moment, then it goes away. They come in next week, it's not there, you have to re-engage. Like, it's not something you can nail down. But you hear this in music. I listen to jazz a lot. You can hear it. You can think about a classic jazz tune. First, they're playing the tune, and then they start to improvise in the middle of the tune, and the improvisation wanders away from the tune. But you can still hear the tune in there, and then they just and these are 4 or 5 different musicians, and they're all playing together. But they've wandered from the tune. The melody was like the coordinates of the ingredients. It's like when I first meet the patient, I get all the details. I'm getting the melody, but then the improv in the middle, there's a little hint of the melody still there, keeping you anchored, but you're wandering into some. And yet those musicians are all playing together, so they know they're connected. And then they come back to the melody at the end. And I think in that middle zone in jazz is kind of that moment in my clinic where I got all the data, I've got the melody here, and now I'm going to stand back and just be in this kind of improv space and sense something bigger, more whole, that still has the hints of the tune there, but it's at a different level of perception.
Coming back to synchronicity and coming back to entanglement and coming back to maybe something that's a bit mysterious.
Yeah.
To be with another person, to be in the presence of another person who is attending to you in a way that they're not directly pointing at something very intimate about you that maybe you barely even dare voice to yourself, but can be there and be connected with that in that way that you're just describing with the jazz, where it's way off the melody, but it's part of the tune, where it's way outside the story that someone's telling you. And there's this piece, maybe, hidden, you could say hidden or forgotten or abandoned or traumatized, or whatever word you want to put on it. It's connected, but it's not quite enlivened. And to have a moment of like, oh, this is part of it as well, to be in that kind of a presence and recognition with another human being.
Oh,
that is something. And, we could call it the Shen touching Shen. You could call it some kind of a Xiao in
It's very sacred.
expression of two people together.
Yeah.
Being connected. There's a lot of ways that you could talk about it if you want to talk about it, or you could just say, it's that jazz tune way off on the edge, and I didn't know that note was in there, but it's discordant, but it really fits, and how lovely.
I mean, this is, that's clinical intimacy. And we're honored to be allowed in to that depth with our patients.
100%. I have a friend we went to the same school, and we've talked over the years about how clinic, there's a sacredness, or there can be a sacredness to that space of clinic. People come in,
right,
and they get to just be who they are, and they get to be heard and seen. I mean, what you're describing here, Daniel, is a way of knowing without that logical, focused subject-object.
Right. It's very subtle, but powerful. Subtle doesn't mean not powerful. It's subtle and very powerful. But it has to be mutual. I mean, I get my share of patients who just want their ankle fixed, and that's all
Yeah, fair enough.
It has to be mutual, or it doesn't happen.
And I suspect that there's a time and a place. It's a little mysterious how it arises at times. I mean, I don't go looking for it as a practitioner, because I think that's intrusive. If I go looking for it, I'm going to go and touch your spirit, no.
No. Well, they wouldn't even let you in. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's about availability and vulnerability.
No. But being open to it, being open to a possibility. Availability and vulnerability. That's a great way to say it. Availability and vulnerability.
I decided a long time ago that my goal was to be, we all have a ceiling. I'm not enlightened, so I've got my own ceiling. Everybody's got their ceilings. But up to my ceiling, I'm fully available for my patients wherever they need me to be. So that's, with each person, that's my position. So I'm here for you right up to my ceiling. But if you just want if you want to just talk hockey scores and fix your ankle, we can do that too.
Sure. Yes, to meet our patients where they are.
Right. Now, I'll caveat that a little bit, because what turns me on in life is to help people move beyond where they are. So my aspiration is to always meet them just a little bit beyond where they are. Not too much, or it's just you're just coming in with a bunch of chainsaws and cutting down the trees, but just to try to locate their edge, and at the right time in the right way, poke that edge, just in an obviously caring way.
Invitational.
Yeah.
The invitation is there.
If I know them well, everything depends on what you've developed with a person, but sometimes I can get provocative too. But I have to know that they're fine with that.
Yes. Well, and that, again, that takes some time.
Yeah.
And it takes some relationship.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking of a patient. Oh, man. I just, so often I just love my patients. They're such curious, interesting, wonderful,
right,
twisted, lovely people.
And love the one, and especially loving the ones that bug you the most.
Yeah. And I've got one who, it's like her digestion just can't handle cheese. And she loves cheese.
God, you just described me.
And I have these moments sometimes where she'll go on about how her digestion's all mucked up, and I'll go, I know you really love this stuff because you know what it's going to do to you, but you just love it so much you're going to eat it anyway.
Yeah, the hair of the dog.
And we have a good laugh about it. I'm not saying don't eat the cheese. I'm saying you really love it. You must love it so much. I kind of tease her.
Well, I have.
Right? It's a way of saying this stuff really mucks with you.
I have.
But also speaking to the love side of it.
Yeah. I have a few things I do early on with patients that are a little provocative, but It's to let them know, oh, this guy's a little different. So one thing I do often is I'll ask, for example, I'll ask someone about their diet. And, it's not unusual for someone to say, I try to eat well, right? We hear that all the time. And I will very often, right there and then, I've just met them, say, I'm not interested in what you're trying to do. I need to know what you are doing. Now, that's provocative. That's not an invitation. I mean, it's an invitation, but it's a little punchy.
Mm-hmm. It is all punchy.
But it's kind of humorously punchy. And they sit up and think, oh, this is a bit different.
This cat means business in a different way. Is that a gauntlet I see laying on the ground? Is this, wait, what is this? I like it.
So, I mean, I don't say that every time. You got to weigh each circumstance, but I do say it fairly regularly.
I like it. Say it again. I want to remember it.
I'm not interested in because people say try all the time. I mean, they use the word all the time. I try to do this. I try to do that.
Yeah.
I said, here, we're not interested in what you're trying to do. We're interested in what you are doing.
It's such a Yoda-like thing. There is no try. There's no try.
Well, yeah, but
I'm trying to raise this, rocket ship out of the swamp. No try. Do.
Sure.
But it's the other side of it. It's saying
it's just a declaration that, okay, if you want to work with me, we have to get into honesty.
Yeah, we're going to get real here. I'm giving you an invitation to be real with me.
But it also, the way I say it, lets them know that because I care about them.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's fun.
Once people trust that you care about them, it's amazing what they'll tell you. There's no end to it. I mean, I've worked on this for many years. I cultivate trust very quickly. I work hard to cultivate trust very quickly. And it's just incredible. Within no time at all, people will open up.
But they have to know that you care.
You have to know that you're not judging from your emotional charge. You're not projecting yourself on them. You're here for them.
Mm-hmm. And you're not laying the cultural story on them either. Right? There's all these cultural stories. You should eat like this. You should do that. Exercise like this. Behave like that. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
Never quite know where it's going to take you.
Exactly. You have to be vulnerable and available. Yeah.
Which brings me to another piece. Let's chat about this for a second. And then we should probably try to land this rocket ship because I keep shooting for an hour with these things, but I keep going over. Maybe I should shoot for 3 hours and let it be at that. Anyway, there's a lot in this, Daniel, that I think we've been touching around the edges of, which is there's so much that we don't know, that there's an element of not knowing because they're a stranger. And we don't know who they are or what things mean to them.
Yeah, you meet someone, you ask them questions for 10 minutes, and then you're putting a treatment in. You just met them.
We just met them. And here's the other thing. And this might be hubris on our part as practitioners. I think about this a lot.
Yeah.
Because they come into my office and they spend an hour in my office like once a week or once a month or whatever. I mean, it's a tiny amount of time.
Tiny.
That we spend together. And I'm expecting that the work that we've done is somehow going to impact them through the rest of the unfolding of their life. Like that, I mean, it's a little bit of hubris there.
Yeah, it's true.
And at the same time, acupuncture and the kind of work that we do can be that powerful that it shifts things. And a piece of it comes from what we know, the knowledge we have and what we do.
Right.
But I suspect a piece of it also comes from that we recognize that there's how do I phrase this? There's a lot of not knowing within the small discernment that we think we know, and room for that to express itself.
I can't tell you how many times I have a patient and they come in and we work over, say, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 treatments. And I'm focused on a particular aspect of their system from certain channels or whatever. And then all of a sudden, on the 7th, 8th, 9th visit, something happens and, it's actually not that, it's this. Or maybe it's both, but I mean, just had someone last week. I mean, she's been in for 8 or 9 or 10 sessions. And something happened in that last visit, and I saw a whole other side to the case.
The energy of 13.
Yeah. But things show up. There's a trust that things do show up when they need to show up.
Yeah. And I think it's cultivated over time.
Right.
Because a big piece of it is there needs to be enough trust that this discordant part actually has a place in the tune.
Right. Yeah. We have to, there's a lot of letting go and there's a lot of trust involved in this process. Things appear in mysterious times, in mysterious ways, and we have to just be ready and available and listening carefully.
Again, and this will sound a little bit like a broken record here. I keep coming back to the beginning of this conversation. We've got the whole scientific subject-object, and there's a place for that. And we have the subject-object as part of a unity, and we're speaking of energy moving in two different directions.
Very diametrically opposed ways of relating.
Mm-hmm. And yet we need them both.
Yeah, it's not to say that how my family doctor treats me is wrong. It's just very different.
And there's a time and a place for there's this thing, and it's kind of mechanical, and being able to approach it from that side is really helpful.
I developed a sepsis a year ago, went to the hospital. They saved my life. I would have been dead within a day.
There you go.
Thank God I got a good hospital next door to me.
Yes. And someone who knows how to use it, knows how to use those methods. So
if I'd gone to my acupuncturist, I would have been dead.
Mm-hmm. Unless your acupuncturist was smart enough to go,
get to the hospital.
Actually, you need to go to the ER. You need to go right now.
Well, actually, the bigger story is that I had a patient who came in with sepsis 5 days before. And I looked at him and I said, you need to go to the hospital immediately. Don't even stop at the coffee shop. He went, and it was too late. He died the next day.
Oh, my goodness.
And I had a cut. And all I had done was picked up his hand and looked at it. It was filled with pus. And I contracted the same problem and got myself to 4 days later, I had sepsis from touching his hand for 5 seconds. Got myself to the hospital and they saved my life.
There's your synchronicity again, isn't it?
Crazy.
Yeah. It's good work if you can get it. Well, my friend.
So both systems are needed, but we need to stand up and say we're here for clinical intimacy.
I think this is an ongoing conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
And maybe we'll hear from some other people on the podcast after they've listened to this conversation, and maybe we need to come back, maybe do a panel at some point. That would be fun.
Yeah.
Get a couple of different points of view.
The challenge is boundaries and, law, litigiousness. These are the challenges we face in that discussion.
We do. Although there is a very interesting phenomenon where the doctors who generally get sued are the doctors that people don't like.
Yeah.
So doctors can make big mistakes, but if the patients like them, they won't get sued. So there's that too.
Yes. It's a good point.
And yes, of course, in any endeavor where there's a professional relationship that is involved, there are boundaries that need to be attended to, but they are semi-permeable.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a man. I work alone. I don't even have a receptionist. 70% of my patients are women. For years, I practiced Japanese palpatory acupuncture, so I'm palpating women's bodies all alone in the clinic. I'm a man. There's nobody else present. When I started practice, I thought I could freak out about this, or I could just trust. And I decided I'm going to trust. I'm going to exemplify trustworthiness. I've never, ever had a problem, like not even one.
Yes. And it's important to be attentive to that. And that's partly how you don't have a problem.
I mean, talk about a potentially risky scenario. A guy alone in the room with a woman and he's palpating her abdomen, and you could go crazy over that.
Yeah, from one point of view, it's like, you're doing what? There is that.
But if you exemplify trustworthiness, and there's not, it seems to work.
We're back to cultivation.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the tricky part, because we live, just so we can conclude, we live in a world that wants to codify everything, rules, regulations, protocols, definitions. I'm the chair of our new regulatory college of acupuncture here, which is like a board of acupuncture in the States. And, we're all about rules and having procedures and codifying everything, but which is part of the culture we live in. And you can't codify cultivation.
Mm-mm. No, there are great and wonderful things that come from the scientific method, and there are great and wonderful things that come from a subject-object relationship.
Right.
But that won't get you everything.
No, and there are things that are lost.
There are things that are gained, and there are things that are lost.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's how do we navigate that going forward is the big challenge.
Mm-hmm. Moment by moment.
Yeah.
It's my suspicion. All right, my friend. Thank you for this time today. It's always a delight hanging out with you. And now I'm all curious about the number 13 too, so I'm going to go looking for that.
Yeah, and the final interesting thing is, so how did 13 become bad luck? How did 13 become something we avoid? That's an interesting question.
It is interesting. And how is it that this Saam guy that you were referring to gave us a 4-needle technique and some interesting ways of thinking about acupuncture? That cat spent like 13 years in a cave. 13 years in a cave.
He's not the only one. I've discovered other examples in spiritual worlds where somebody spent 13 years in a cave and developed something. So the word 13, the number 13 is known and has been for a long time to represent the arrival at wholeness and love. And then at some point, somebody didn't want that and said, let's avoid 13. Let's make it unlucky. Let's build buildings with no 13th floor, on and on and on. There's a story there for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a good place to put a pin in it for the day. Wholeness and love.
Yeah. It's awesome what we get to do every day with our patients. Is wonderful.
Like I said, it's good work if you can get it. All right, my friend. Till next time then.
Till next time.
In thinking over this conversation with Daniel, I realize that what we've been discussing is not something that you can learn in a theory class or be tested on to assess for your competency. No, I think that the kind of heart space we have been noodling on comes from doing the work itself, of sitting with people long enough, of brushing up against our own troubles, opinions, and the emotional tenderness involved in the work of being an acupuncturist. There is a how we are in clinic that matters. As Daniel pointed out, there is a way to understand in a Descartesian way of taking things apart, and also a Goethean way of understanding by moving toward wholeness. There is a curious intimacy that can arise in an acupuncture clinic because to help people, we need to be curious about them. There's some magic in being curious about people. It's like sunshine to a flower. Having a space where people are allowed to be who they are and invited to be even more of who they are, that already makes the world a little more peaceful and integrated. There's that term, air quotes here, holding space. For some reason, for many years, that term has annoyed me, that you could hold a space like you hold a door for someone. But over time, I found that what gets held are my judgments, diagnoses, and beliefs about who a patient might be. Before I aim a treatment at them, attempting to course correct them into better health, first, I need to know who they are. We talk about this a lot in our trade, that we treat people, not diseases. I don't know about you, but I want to see my patients' troubles, suffering, and illness change in a notably positive way. And to do that, we have to first know who it is that's sitting in front of us. First, we must seek to understand.